Good morning. Buenos dias. And Dominicans, que lo que? All right, first off, we want to thank you. Time wants to thank you, and Pastor Uge in La Romana in the Dominican Republic wants to thank you because your kids raised money for Time to Eat. And they are in the process of buying the food for that. They're going to be putting together the bags and delivering them to families next week in the La Romana Church. And Pastor Uge is the pastor there if you want to pray for that this week. So thank you very much. As many of you know, apparently there's a mission trip coming up. Woohoo! Yes, you guys, we're going to go to the Dominican Republic next summer in June. Montvale is signed up for that, and our missionaries are already praying for it. So hopefully you are as well. But you might not know what it is that time does. So I'll fill you in. Some of the people from Sunday school, the youth Sunday school already heard some of this, but time, missions, we have missionaries that live in Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico, and in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And they live there year-round, and they build relationships with local pastors who have congregations, local pastors who really want to do something for God. They have a vision, but they might not have the resources. And so we find groups from the United States that want to come out and partner with these churches to give them a little kickstart, to help them in construction, in discipleship, in evangelism. It's really the church helping the church to be the church, because we want to reach communities for Christ. We want to help the local church. We don't go in and start a church. We don't go in and tell people, here's what you need to do. There's Dominican pastors that know what they're doing. There's Haitian pastors that know what they're doing. God has called them, and we want to support them and lift them up. So that's what we do. We've taken a trip before, but for those who don't know, just to fill you in, and I mentioned this to the youth. I'm looking over you because I remember you from the Sunday school. We talked about where we stay. We have a time building in the DR. If you want to show that first slide. Can't see it from here. Oh, there it is. It's in the back. Okay, so excellent. That's wonderful. So that's our time facility in the DR. We're up in the Via Mea area, which is, it was nothing when we started. It was cows. Now it's a whole community. And so we have dorms there. We have a kitchen. We have missionaries. This is all the missionaries in time. I work with all these people. But 2/3 of those stay in the Dominican Republic all the time. The rest are in Mexico. But we have a mixture of national and U.S. missionaries. So we have Dominican missionaries and American missionaries in the Dominican Republic. We have Mexican missionaries and American missionaries and a Colombian missionary down in Mexico. So you come out. We have a friendly staff of missionaries who have been working with the churches, ready to plug you guys in wherever you go. We also have the lovely ladies of the kitchen. We have a nice kitchen facility, and they are cooking up both American, but mostly Dominican foods. So it's really good. Carmine, which one is she? I'm trying to see the picture up there. Carmine is in the red shirt. She is one of our newest missionaries, and her whole thing is hospitality. She started out as our cook. She's been cooking for us for years. Now she's actually going out to the sites and teaching cooking with some of the churches and doing some women's ministry as she goes. So we're excited about that. But they are there. Next, we have a dining facility, and you can just see the line, people going around. And we feed you. We house you. There's dorms. We drive you around. We do all the logistics so that you can serve. Okay, so this one, we're on We also do devotions in the morning, and we're on the roof doing our devotions, singing. The whole town gets to hear us, which is always fun. We take you to various church services. Next. Here's one of the smaller church service out there, because we want you to experience not only our own little devotions, but we want you to see what the church does. You can see the people. Next. I need a clicker. There's some of the people listening intently. Oh yeah, you recognize somebody? And then our church next door, our anchor church, is a lot bigger. That's this one. And they're doing a lot of work. They're enclosing the sides for those who've been there before. So they're making that into a building. Right now it's just a tin roof. But they have hundreds that come on Sunday morning, so that's fun. So this is what we do with time. We pick up a group of jet-lag, naive Americans, and we put them to work all week. But they come in, and we introduce them to this pile of wood. Because one of the big things that we do, a big part of it, is we want to do construction, but we also do evangelism and discipleship. But the big construction thing is we build chapels. There are churches that are meeting under tarps. They're meeting under carports. We had a church, their Sunday school was in a van on the street, because that's the only place that they had to meet. Each community, each of these small communities, they have a church. If they have a church, they usually need a chapel, a building to meet in. They're not going to drive 20 minutes to go to the big church. They're going to walk to their local church. And so in both Dominican communities, and there's also a lot of Haitian refugee communities that we do work with. And again, we work with the local pastors. The interesting thing is, in the Haitian communities, we work with Dominican pastors whose heart is for the Haitian people, and so they're raising up Haitian pastors. So we're helping the Dominican pastors, helping the Haitian pastors, helping the Haitian community. Church helping the church. We don't have any boundaries. But we'll take this pile of wood next. We have, in our facility, we have space where we build, and all week long we build panels. We have templates that you just put the wood in and screw it in. We teach you how to do it. We've had everything from junior high girls to Veronica doing it. But we put these together. As you can see, everybody gets a part. Working hard. And then we're done. We have a panel. This one's a window panel. We pray over the panel, we stick it in a pile, and we build another one. And we just build and build and build all week long. Now, there's other things to do besides building a panel. There's wood to be cut. So there's power tools. We usually want the 18-year-olds and older to use the power tools. But for the other ones, we can use anything. Screwing it in together, again, we've had all kinds of people. So you can see, there's a variety of things to do. Some people, stand up and work and push, and some people, they work smarter, not harder. So, yeah. So you'll be able to see how that works. Now, if you want to see where we are, let me look at this. Okay, right hand is us. So the right hand pointing, that's where we are in the Dominican Republic, and where we built this particular chapel is the left hand, way out there. So it was quite the drive. This is the lot. It's an empty lot. And so what we want is the church, the local church, to buy the lot. They have to have the land. They have to have some buy-in. So we're not just giving stuff away. We're not going to come in and be the saviors. We're coming in partnering. And so the church says, this is our church. We have the lot. They're also going to finish the floor later and do the electricity. But we come in then, and they help us. We work together. We build a foundation on the first day, and we have, everybody working. Well, let's try this one. Next one. everybody working. What? It's only Veronica. Oh, there they are. Okay, finally. Finally, Veronica shames everybody else into working. Keep going. And we're digging holes, we're mixing cement, and we're basically putting up, or standing around looking at people mixing cement. But then in the afternoons, we do that during the day. In the afternoons, we get to go out and do ministry. So we'll jump on a bus. This one, we're taking the kids with us, going to another location, getting ready. You see, they got cleaned up real nice. But it rained this day, so we had to be inside, and we had a VBS, lots of kids coming out. We do a VBS type thing and teach them about Jesus, and it's just a lot of fun. And that's basically our day. Then usually we have to get a water break, and the last day we take all the things that we built, from the trusses to the panels, and we load them into a truck. We had a box truck this year. We decided to go with a flatbed truck. It works so much better. So you'll appreciate that, because that was hard to squish all that stuff in there. But we take that all then out to the site. Oh, there we are. We pray over it. And then we take it out to the site. Yes. And we put it up in pieces. We just stand them up. We do the corners first. We keep building, keep building, keep building. One day, there's the trusses going up. And then one day we have people on the roof. We have a church. And look at it. Look how excited this team is. Now, wait. Let me show you. There we go. Now we're excited. So empty lot to a church. What does that say to the community? They know there's a church meeting, and they're just meeting on a lot or somebody's house. And in one day, they turn around and, oh, hey, they now have a building. I want to check out what's going on. And they can have that. So we have a dedication ceremony where we hand over the keys. We do a little prayer for the church. The pastor gets that. And so, we have a pastor from 2 different countries that get together and do more for the kingdom. And we have 2 churches from 2 different worlds come together to do more for the kingdom. And that's what we do. And that's what you're going to get to do next summer. I think that's pretty cool. And when I think of missions, of course, in the Bible, who do you think of? Yes, Nehemiah. So, if you turn to Nehemiah, I just want to take a look at a couple verses. Because Nehemiah, they are, let's see, we got the Babylonian exile, you got Daniel going off, all that's the cool stuff, great book, fun stuff, lions, fire, you'll have to read it. But Nehemiah, Ezra, they're in the same time, a little bit later, because the Babylonians, after Israel got exiled, some people stayed, but they took all the important people away to Babylon, the Babylonian Empire. But then a bigger fish comes along and swallows them. So Persia conquers the Babylonian Empire. They fall. Persia's up, and the Israelis, the Jews who are still there. They're still there. They're still working and serving this other empire. They're still in exile, but now they just have other people to serve. And the people they're serving now is that they're a little bit more open, a little bit more friendly to possibilities. And the Persians sent back several groups of Jews to go back and restore Jerusalem and to work over there and to get things looking good. So that's where we come in Nehemiah 1, 3 and 4. And it says that there was a couple relatives of Nehemiah who came to visit from Jerusalem, and they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, its gates destroyed by fire. And as soon as I heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. when he heard the news, when he heard the need, when he heard that there was a group of his people that were frustrated and down, that they had the heart, but they didn't have the resources. They might have had the vision, but now they're getting discouraged because of the things that are happening. He has a burden and says, we have to do something. And he prayed and he fasted. Now, I hope when you hear about needs around the world, it's not me. I don't care. But when you hear about needs around the world of your brothers and sisters, it hits you that hard, where you pray and you fast. And he's not praying, and you got to understand the whole idea of praying and fasting. It's not really for God's benefit. I mean, you're not telling God. If you pray, you're not telling God anything he doesn't know. Matthew 6:7. He's talking about don't be like the Pharisees and the Gentiles and do empty phrases in your prayers. Mean what you say. It says, don't be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you even ask. So don't worry about doing all this fancy stuff. Just come before the Father and lay out your heart. Isn't that weird? God already knows what we need. Why are we praying? Well, that's for us. That's to get us lined up with God. In 1 John 5:14 and 15, it says, this is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything, we're not at that one yet, sorry. But if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we asked of him. Okay, so if he hears us, we have whatever we asked. Well, why don't I have a new car then? Why don't I have... You got to read the whole verse. We have confidence in approaching him if we ask according to his will. So now we have to stop and say, okay, what's his will in this? Because guess what? His will's going to happen no matter what. So we might as well line ourselves up with his will. And then it'll happen the way we want to, because we're on God's side. A lot of people think, okay, this is God's view, and here's my view. And I pray and fast hard enough, I can move God to see things my way. And it's just the opposite. We're praying and fasting. Is this God's will? And it moves us to see it God's way. And that's what Nehemiah, he's praying and fasting, and he's saying, yes, I see it your way, God. These people need help. I need to do something. What can I do? And so he goes to, now we can go to the Nehemiah 2:4 and on, where he says, then the king, a little backstory. It turns out Nehemiah is the cupbearer of the king. He has an inn. But if you know anything about Old Testament kings, you just don't come out and talk to them. They're very finicky. They get weird. I mean, if you do something the slightest bit wrong, they're like, kill him. It's like, Alice in Wonderland, the queen, wasn't she always saying, we're off with their head? The problem is, once you cut somebody's head off, you can't take it back. And so people they learn to walk very carefully around the king. And so you don't say anything to the king, you wait till the king speaks to you first. So he's like, that's part of what he was praying for, that he has an opportunity. And so he's making sure that he's ready. And finally, the king says to me, what are you, he goes, he notices that Nehemiah's sad. He says, why are you so sad? He goes, I heard some bad news. Well, can I do anything about it? And that's where we are. The king says, what are you requesting? So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it. And the king said to me, the queen sitting beside him, how long will you be gone, and when will you return? So it pleased the king to send me when I had given him a time. So he was praying, and guess what? God answers his prayer. Because it's God's will anyway. So he was lined himself up with God and wanted to do what God wanted. And then all of a sudden the opportunity arose. and he was there and ready. Now, here's the interesting thing I find, is that, it sounds real spiritual. He's praying and fasting. But you know what? He was also doing something else while he was praying and he was fasting. Because he was thinking about the situation and how it might go. He was planning this whole time. Because he says, the king comes on, he asked, how long will you be gone? He knew. He didn't say, oh, let me get back to you. He already had it planned out. And then he goes on in verse 7, he says, and I said to the king, if it pleases the king, let letters be given me to the governors of the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through until I come to Judah. And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber and make beams for the gates and of the fortress of the temple, and for the walls of the city, and for the houses that I shall occupy. And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of my God was upon me. So he didn't have to sit there and go, when the king said, do you need anything else? Oh, well, let me get back to you on that. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think God was going to answer. No, he said, I was confident God was going to answer, so I made a plan. I have a plan. Now, there are people, and sometimes, when I'm working with people from other countries, there's different thoughts about, there's different cultural things. And one of my friends in the Dominican Republic, I don't think this is true of all Dominicans, but his particular thing is they don't like to plan. It's like, well, God will work it out. It's like, yeah, but if you plan this ahead of time, it works out a lot easier. And then when the project's done, it's like, see, God worked it out. Yeah, but we were pulling out our hair at times. Whoa, I almost fell off the stage. I move around a lot. So there's nothing unspiritual about planning. It happens in the Bible all the time. The Nehemiah, he's of there's two big world views in the world. You got the Western view and the Eastern view. There's a honor shame, and a guilt innocence. It's a whole thing. But the Latin American culture is more closer to the eastern side, and the U.S. is more closer to the western side. So there's things that you have to understand about both. Okay, that's a long story. But the Bible, this is the eastern culture. So it's not like, well, yeah, Americans plan. No, Nehemiah was planning. Esther, when she had to go and Mordecai was telling her about Haman's plot. Hopefully, if you don't remember the story of Esther, read it. It's great. But she had an opportunity to go before the king. But if she did it wrong and he didn't accept her, she could be killed. So she was taking her life in her hands. And it said, I'll do this if everybody, all of Israel, prays for me. 3 days. I'm going to pray. 3 days of prayer and fasting. Again, just like Nehemiah. And when the time came, what happened was Esther says, when the king recognized her, he goes, just didn't come out and make her request. She said, I want you to come to a dinner, you and Haman, that I prepared. And they went that night for a dinner. And then she said, and he said, what do you want? He goes, well, come to a dinner tomorrow night again, and I'll tell you. So you just don't come up with a dinner for a king out of your pocket. She had to have that planned in advance. Those 3 days of prayer and fasting, she wasn't just praying and fasting, she was planning and getting and preparing this feast for the king because she was confident that he was going to do it. So Eastern culture, they're planning and fasting and praying. Sometimes we don't pray enough and we plan too much. So we got to remember prayer and planning. They go together. Because we're God's instruments here on earth. We're the way he does it. Can he do miracles? Yes. But they're miracles. They're not made to order. They happen when we can't do it ourselves. God steps in. But most of the time he's going, you can do it. I made you. I know you can. This is why I made you. So, Nehemiah, He prayed, he planned, and he was pretty bold in asking for all this stuff from the king. And then finally, in the next section, in 4, there it is, they get to it. Nehemiah's doing great in building the city. They're building the wall. He's a really good manager because he gets everybody involved. Everybody from the politicians and the priests down to the laborers and the merchants, all the spectrums, the widows, the whole spectrum of people were building this wall, and they each built their section. And the wall was coming along, and the local bad guys were going, we don't like this wall because it's stopping us from being able to go in and taking whatever we want. And so they heard about that these guys were planning a raid to rip down the wall. In Nehemiah 4:7, when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabs and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the repairing of the walls of Jerusalem was going forward and that the breaches were beginning to be closed, they were very angry. And they all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and to cause confusion in it. And Nehemiah says, and we prayed to our God and set a guard as protection against them day and night. They prayed, and they set a guard. Nehemiah earlier, he prayed, and he planned. He prayed, and he put it into action by setting a guard. He did what he could, and he gave the rest to God. It goes hand in hand. God works through us. It's very easy to get cocky and think, okay, we're working for God. I mean, on one side, you can get very comforted if you stay humble and say, I can do anything because I work for God. On the other side, pride can slip in and say, I work for God, and very soon that becomes, I'm doing it. It's still all God, but he's working through us. In the Bible it says how God wants us to do our part. It tells us, what does it say? I didn't have this in my notes. But it talks about how God will take care of you. Don't worry about tomorrow. Look at the birds of the air, the flowers. They don't work. And yet God takes care of them. He clothes them. He feeds them. Oh, that's wonderful. Don't worry about tomorrow. So you can look at that verse and go, oh, good. I'm just going to sit back and watch TV. I don't have to do anything. God will send Uber Eats over, and I'm good. But in 2 Thessalonians 3:10, the Bible says, for when we were with you, we gave you this command. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. How does God provide for us? He gave us the ability to work. And then if you're so focused on working physically to eat, he also comes in and says, hey, don't work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life. Over in John 6:27, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him the Father has set his seal. So yes, you got to work to eat, but that's secondary to working for the food that doesn't perish. God is showing you a need. We need to pray for that need. We need to pray and plan. And frankly, the Missions Commission has planned, and they have prayed. And they have said, I think we're going to go out to the Dominican Republic and help our fellow church members, our brothers and sisters, to help them reach their community for Christ. But he says, I don't want you just to pray. I don't want you just to plan. I want you to do it. I want you to put it into action. If you can go, I want you to go. Now, reality, not everybody can go. But if you can't go, you better be praying for those who are. And it does cost finances to go. You could support somebody who's going. But as we saw last time, our group, the group from Montvale, if you're thinking, oh, I can't go, I'm this or that, or particularly I'm too old. The group from Montvale probably had the oldest average age. No offense. But, I mean, we do a lot of youth. We do a lot of high schoolers, but, I mean, well, Carolyn was like the youngest, and everybody else was. Here's the thing. Montvale Church, that summer, we put up the fastest chapel of any other group. Teenagers, you name it, the fastest chapel went up with this church. That's pretty cool. So if you're doing it with God, you can do it. So consider that trip. The last thing I want to show you is how did this whole country, people from all walks of life, build this wall? How could they put in all that effort? Because they had the right mindset. It says in Nehemiah 4:6, so they built the wall, and all the wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. I had something delivered at my house. I was talking to the delivery driver. He was very friendly, and I mentioned how our church is right down the street. We go to church down there. He goes, oh, that church? Oh, yeah. He goes, so what do you do? I said, well, we do church. I mean, I'm not the pastor, but he goes, no. What does your church do? I said, well, let's see. I teach Sunday school, and I have a men's group, and I work on the worship team, and most of our church, we got like 80, 90% of the people are in some kind of ministry someplace. He goes, so you're a working church. There are churches that sit, and there are churches that work. Do we have a mind to work? Because God is calling you. He calls all of us to work, not just for the food that perishes, because we have to do that, we have to survive, but for the food that never perishes, that endures for eternal life, reaching others for Christ, bringing others into the kingdom. Be a church that works. Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you that you've given us this responsibility. We thank you. I don't quite understand it, but you choose to work through your church, through us, through people. And we're fallible, but help us to pray. Help us to put it all in your hands, but help us to do our part. Help us to have a mind to work for your kingdom. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.